Hi, watch the story to the end and subscribe and leave a comment. It's important to me. Enjoy the story. She walked through the front door like it was just another Thursday. No kiss. No smile. Not even a hey. Just a quick toss of her heels near the entryway and a muttered, "Long day." Then she brushed past me like I was just furniture. Like I didn't even exist. But I noticed everything. The dress, black, tight, low-cut, wasn't just out of character. That thing hadn't seen the light of day in years. I remembered it clearly. Our anniversary dinner 3 years ago when we were still pretending to be in love. She wore it then with her hair done up and her eyes soft with laughter. Tonight it looked different. Worn like a uniform. Her makeup was smudged. Not in a romantic, wind-blown kind of way, but like she tried to fix it and gave up halfway. Her lipstick was faint, like it had been kissed off and she hadn't thought to reapply it. And then there was her hair, half pinned, half wild, just messy enough to look like she didn't care but not enough to be accidental. It was like I was looking at the shell of someone I used to know, trying to pass off someone else's energy as her own. But the worst part? The scent. It hit me the second she stepped inside. Not lavender. Not the usual body spray she picked up from Target. This was deeper. Muskier. Some kind of cologne, expensive, woodsy, definitely not mine. I didn't own anything like that. I hadn't worn cologne in months, maybe longer. I didn't need to. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. But someone was. And he had been close enough to her for it to cling. She didn't even try to hide it. She just walked past me like I wasn't standing there. Made a beeline for the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Stared inside like she expected it to tell her what to do next. Everything about her screamed performance. The dramatic sigh. The weak little yawn. The stretch like she was trying to sell the idea of exhaustion. She moved like someone who'd practiced this a dozen times in front of a mirror and figured she could get away with it again. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask questions. I just stood in the kitchen doorway, watching, my stomach twisting in knots I didn't want to untangle. I'd seen this play before. I knew the signs. The sudden wardrobe changes. The makeup for no reason. The phone that used to sit on the counter now always in her pocket, face down, screen black. I told myself I was being paranoid for weeks. Told myself I was projecting. But this wasn't paranoia. This was fact. She finally grabbed a bottle of water, turned, and walked upstairs without even glancing my way. I heard the bedroom door shut behind her. Not slam, just a soft click, as if she thought being quiet made it innocent. Like I wouldn't hear the sound of her betrayal in every single footstep. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the cold granite biting into my palms. Everything inside me was screaming to say something, to demand answers. But I didn't. I held it in. That part of me that wanted to explode was drowned out by something colder. Something quieter. Not sadness. Not anger. Strategy. I already knew. She hadn't been at happy hour with coworkers. She hadn't been stuck in traffic or grabbing dinner with friends. She had been with someone else. Someone who made her laugh in ways I hadn't seen in months. Someone who wore that cologne and touched her in ways I hadn't since things started unraveling. I didn't have proof yet, but I didn't need it. Not tonight. Because tonight wasn't about catching her in the lie. Tonight was about watching her tell it. And she was bad at lying. Really bad. The thing is, cheating doesn't usually happen out of nowhere. It starts as a shift. A distance. You try to brush it off. Life gets busy. People change. Work stress. You name it. You start filling in the blanks with excuses because the alternative, that the person you trusted most is choosing someone else, is too heavy to carry. So you tell yourself stories. Little ones at first. She's just tired. She's been stressed. She deserves a night out. But eventually the stories stop working, and all you're left with is silence. Cold, empty silence in a house that used to feel warm. That's where we were. And I hated that I saw it coming and did nothing. That I let it fester. That I sat there watching the person I loved become someone I couldn't recognize and said nothing. Until now. Now it was real. That cologne on her skin made it real. That distant look in her eyes when she brushed past me made it real. She didn't even try to lie about it. Didn't offer an explanation. Didn't ask how my day was. Didn't care. And the worst part? I wasn't shocked. Not anymore. I was just done. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fall apart and give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. That's not who I am. And it's sure as hell not who I was going to be now. No, I was going to do what she never saw coming. I was going to wait. Watch. Document. Plan. Because while she thought she was slipping something past me tonight, she had no idea she'd already made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't do anything, that I'd just take it. But she was wrong. So wrong. And I was about to show her just how wrong she really was. 2 weeks earlier, the cracks were already spreading. Quiet ones, the kind that sneak into a foundation before anything actually collapses. You don't notice them at first. You think you're just tired. You think you're both just going through a rough patch. But then you realize it's been days since you touched each other. Really touched. Not just a passing graze in the hallway. No lingering kisses. No shared glances. The warmth that used to fill the room when she walked in? Gone. Replaced with small talk, forced smiles, and this eerie sense of distance that kept growing no matter how hard I tried to bridge it. I told myself it was stress. Work had been piling up for both of us. We were trying to save for a bigger place. She was dealing with some crap at her job. I chalked it up to life being hard, relationships ebbing and flowing. But deep down, I knew something was off. I knew it in the way she pulled away when I reached for her hand on the couch. I knew it in the way she'd light up for her phone but barely lift her head when I walked in the room. I kept making excuses because admitting what I suspected was too damn painful. Then came the night she said she needed to get out and clear her head. We were sitting in the living room, the TV playing some mindless sitcom we weren't even watching. She was scrolling through her phone, thumb twitching, not really reading anything. I asked if everything was okay, and she gave me a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she said. I need some air. I'm going to meet up with the girls for a drink." I nodded. Didn't push. I wasn't trying to be controlling. She deserved a break. She deserved space. That's what I told myself. But the way she jumped up, already halfway to the bedroom to change before I even answered, it hit me wrong. Something about it felt rehearsed. Not panicked, but too smooth. Like she'd practiced this part in her head. 20 minutes later, she came downstairs in jeans that hugged her like a second skin and a top I hadn't seen in a long time. Her hair was curled loosely, makeup redone just enough to be deliberate. And that perfume, the one she saved for special occasions, lingered in the air behind her like a warning. She grabbed her keys and kissed me on the cheek, light as a feather. "Don't wait up," she said, and then she was gone. I sat there on the couch, staring at the door after it closed, heart thudding in my chest. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe in us. But something inside me cracked open that night, and what spilled out was doubt. Raw, sharp, undeniable. I pulled out my phone, hesitated, then opened the tracking app we'd both installed a year ago when she lost her phone at a concert. She'd forgotten about it. I hadn't. At first, I just wanted to ease my nerves, make sure she was safe. That's what I told myself. But as I watched the dot that was her location drift farther from home, then settle into a spot on the east side of town, my stomach dropped. Not a bar she'd mentioned. Not anywhere near her usual spots. I waited a few minutes. Then I got in my truck. The place was a small wine bar tucked between a boutique and a florist. Not trendy. Not busy. Just quiet. Cozy. Mate. I parked across the street and sat in the dark. The dashboard lights the only thing glowing around me. I didn't know what I expected to see. I hoped I was wrong. That she'd be inside with her friends, laughing, talking about work, venting about me. Could have lived with that. But then I saw her through the window. She wasn't with her friends. She was sitting at a small table near the back, dim lighting casting shadows across her face. Her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in months. Not because she saw me, but because of him. The man sitting across from her. Older maybe by 10 years. Clean-cut. Confident. The way he leaned in, elbow on the table, smiling at her like they shared a secret. I wanted to rip the door open and throw the whole place into chaos. But I didn't. I sat there and watched. She touched his hand. Just a light touch, fingers grazing his wrist as she laughed at something he said. It wasn't a big gesture. It wasn't overt. But I knew that touch. I'd felt it before, years ago when she first fell in love with me. When she looked at me like I was her whole world. She hadn't touched me like that in a long time. And now she was giving it to someone else. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo from the windshield, and took another with the telephoto lens I'd bought for vacations we never took. Her laugh, his hand, their wine glasses tilted toward each other like their whole little bubble had no idea I was outside watching it all crumble. I didn't go inside. I didn't confront her. I turned the key, drove away, and didn't go home. I couldn't stomach it. Not the couch where she used to fall asleep on my shoulder. Not the bed we shared like strangers. I needed space. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere I could think. So I drove to my office. Sat at my desk, lights off, screens glowing. And I stayed there until the sun came up. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in that stale office chair. The city lights fading from the windows behind me as the dark hours passed one after another. The world was quiet, and my thoughts were loud. Every image from that wine bar played in my mind like a sick slideshow. Her hand on his, her smile, the way her shoulders tilted slightly toward him like she was drawn to his orbit. I couldn't stop seeing it. I kept the photos on the desk in front of me. I printed them out at work using the color printer in the break room. My hands trembled as they came out, each one colder than the last. These weren't just pictures. These were receipts. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't paranoid. That my gut had been right all along. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I think I was past that. What I felt wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was something colder, focused, like a gear had shifted in my brain and suddenly, I wasn't just reacting. I was planning. By morning, I was back in the house, making breakfast for the kids like any other Saturday. Pancakes, strawberries, bacon. She hadn't come home yet. I knew she'd creep in around 8 or 9 a.m., like she had gone for an early jog or was out grabbing coffee with a friend. That's what she'd say. That's what liars say when they think you're too weak to push back. I timed it perfectly. After I dropped the kids off with my sister for the weekend, told them Mom had a lot of work and needed a quiet house. I came back, climbed the stairs slowly, and left a plain manila envelope on her pillow. Inside, the photos, the GPS screensh *TS. A printout of the dinner receipt from the week before she told me she was at a late client meeting, which I'd pulled from our joint bank account. The hotel booking from a month prior, under her name but billed to a card she thought I never checked. I included the texts too, one I'd found on her tablet, from M, his name, I'd eventually learn, thanking her for last night and calling her my escape. The envelope didn't have a note. It didn't need one. That evening, she walked through the front door carrying groceries like nothing had happened, like we were still pretending. I didn't say anything, just sat in the living room, watching her through the open archway between us, waiting. 10 minutes later, she walked into the bedroom. It was quiet, dead quiet. Then I heard her footsteps again, slower this time. She walked back into the living room and stood across from me, clutching the envelope like it was a bag of broken glass. "I don't know what you think this is," she started. I laughed, not out of amusement, just disbelief. "I think it's exactly what it is," I said. Her jaw tightened. She didn't apologize. She didn't break down crying. She didn't say she was sorry or that she loved me. She didn't even say his name. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "You had no right to go through my stuff." That's when I knew she had no idea what was coming. "You think the violation here is me checking your location?" I said. "You think the problem is that I followed the trail of lies you left behind like a damn scavenger hunt?" Her lips parted, like she was about to fire back, but I stood up before she could. My voice didn't raise. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. "I saw you with him," I said. "I watched you touch him like I don't exist." She swallowed hard, eyes flashing with something that looked more like embarrassment than guilt. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered. Then why hide it? I asked. Why lie? She opened her mouth, closed it, sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. It wasn't supposed to go this far, but it had. I didn't press. I didn't ask for more details. I'd heard enough. The timeline didn't matter. The exact number of nights didn't matter. The hotel names, the messages, the photos, none of it could be undone. I just looked at her, and in that moment, I realized she thought this would be like every other fight. That we'd yell, argue, cry, and then pretend it never happened. That I'd absorb the betrayal and keep the peace for the kids. That I'd swallow it down like I had before when things got hard. But not this time. I'm leaving, I said. Tomorrow. Her head snapped up. What? You heard me. I've already made the arrangements. For how long? She asked, voice cracking. To where? I don't know, I said, grabbing my keys. Long enough for you to realize what you've done. I left her there, staring after me like she couldn't believe this was real. I stayed at my cousin's place that night, a spare bedroom in Lafayette with a twin bed and walls covered in sports posters. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was quiet. Nobody asking me what was wrong. Nobody pretending. Just a space to think and breathe and build the next step. By noon the next day, I'd moved half the savings into a separate account and frozen the credit cards. I called the bank, changed the passwords, booked a consultation with a divorce attorney recommended by a friend who'd been through the same hell 5 years ago. The guy was sharp, older, experienced, all business. I showed him what I had. He looked through the envelope like a doctor scanning x-rays. This is solid, he said, and it's going to be very useful. Back at the house, she must have tried to shop. I knew because I got the fraud alert notification when the card was declined at a boutique she liked. The messages started soon after. Short at first. Can we talk? Then angry. What the hell are you doing? Then desperate. Please don't do this. I didn't reply, but then she posted a photo. Her, with him, at a vineyard, his arm around her, her lips pressed to his cheek. Caption. Happiness is finding someone who sees the real you. I saved the post, forwarded it to the attorney. He responded with one word. Useful. The court hearing came fast. Faster than I expected, honestly. My lawyer didn't waste time. He filed for an emergency custody order the same day he saw the vineyard photo, and by midweek we were standing in a small courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, facing a judge who looked like she'd heard it all before. She didn't smile, didn't soften, just peered over her glasses like she was trying to decide if she should be irritated or concerned. My attorney presented everything. The photos, the social media posts, the location tracking logs. But what really hit hardest wasn't any of that. It was the testimony we got from her best friend, Rachel. I hadn't even asked for it. Rachel reached out to me, said she couldn't watch Emily keep doing what she was doing. Said the affair had started months ago, maybe longer. That it wasn't just physical. That she'd been talking about leaving me even before it happened but didn't want to deal with the fallout. That she was using "the kids will be fine" as a get-out-of-jail-free card. That testimony, coming from her inner circle, it landed like a hammer. The judge didn't blink. She just nodded, asked a few questions, then looked at Emily, who sat there pale, lips pursed, trying to look composed, and said, given the timeline, the emotional instability, and the failure to disclose the relationship before introducing the children to a new adult, I find there's enough concern to grant temporary sole custody to the petitioner. Visitation will be supervised and limited to weekends for now. Emily's mouth opened like she wanted to protest, but her lawyer touched her arm and whispered something that shut her up quick. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel relieved. I just felt tired. Later that week, she broke the order. It was almost surreal the way it happened. The kids were supposed to be picked up from school by me. Agreed upon, signed off, everything. But when I got there, the front office told me they'd already been checked out by their mother. Said she claimed it was an emergency. I froze. Called her. No answer. Texted. Nothing. 30 minutes later, the police were knocking on the door of her friend's house. She was there in the kitchen, cooking pancakes, acting like it was Saturday morning. The kids were in pajamas watching a movie like this was some spontaneous sleepover. She told the officers it was all a misunderstanding. The report said otherwise, and so did the judge when she reviewed the violation. That same night, I was back in my lawyer's office, sitting across from him with my hands in my lap, going over the paperwork to file for full custody. No unsupervised contact. No room for error. No benefit of the doubt. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "If we do this, we do it by the book. No surprises. It has to be facts, not feelings." I nodded. "Do it." He brought in a court-appointed child psychologist, neutral, state-certified. The kind who walks into your home and observes like a ghost. Doesn't smile too much. Doesn't frown either. Just watches. Takes notes. Asks the kids questions so softly you wonder if they're even listening. At my house, she saw our routines. Dinner together. Board games. Kids doing homework at the kitchen table. My daughter helping me pack lunches while my son narrated some bizarre story about dragons and space pirates. She stayed for bedtime, heard the lullabies, the teeth-brushing chaos, the way both kids still wanted me to lie next to them before they drifted off. At Emily's, it was different. I wasn't there, but I read the report later. Disorganized. Emotionally reactive. Defensive when asked about the timeline of her new relationship. The psychologist noted that the kids seemed quiet, hesitant, that Emily talked over them when they answered questions, that the house felt unsettled. That word stuck with me, unsettled. That's exactly how it had felt toward the end. The final hearing wasn't dramatic. Emily came in wearing a navy blue blazer like she was interviewing for her life. Her lawyer looked tired, flipping through papers like he already knew how it would go. The judge read the report out loud. Emily stared down at the table, blinking fast. Based on the recommendations of the child psychologist, the violation of the temporary custody order, and the evidence submitted regarding the nature of the extramarital relationship and its effect on the stability of the children's home life, the judge said, "I am granting full legal and physical custody to the petitioner." Her voice didn't rise. She didn't pause. Visitation will remain supervised and will occur at the designated center. Any changes to this arrangement will require a 6-month review and documented compliance with therapeutic support services. Emily didn't say anything, didn't cry, just nodded stiffly like she was trying not to fall apart in public. A week later, she saw the kids for the first time under supervision. It was at a family center. Glass walls, counselors sitting nearby pretending not to listen. I waited in the car, didn't want to make a scene. My daughter came out first. She climbed into the back seat, didn't say a word for a moment. Then she said quietly, "She cried a lot." I glanced in the rearview mirror. "How was it?" She shrugged. "We just watched a movie." She asked a bunch of stuff. Then she hugged me and cried some more. "And how did that make you feel?" Another shrug. Then, "I cried the whole time. I didn't say anything. Didn't know what to say. I just turned on the radio and drove us home with the volume turned up louder than usual. Not loud enough to hurt, just loud enough to give us both space." A few days later, Emily sent one last message. It was long, bitter, a wall of text blaming me for everything. Said I'd manipulated the courts, poisoned the kids against her, ruined her life. She ended it with, "I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything." I stared at it for a long time. Thought about deleting it. Thought about writing a paragraph back. But instead, I typed 4 words. "You did this yourself." And I never messaged her again. The weeks that followed were quiet, in that strange, unfamiliar way. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. Not yet. But the kind that settles after a storm, when everything's been ripped up and tossed around, and now it's just still. Too still. I kept waking up expecting some new blow, some twist in the story. But it didn't come. Emily had gone quiet. No more messages. No surprise visits. No calls to the kids, no gifts dropped off at the door. It was like she had disappeared. Not just from the house, but from the life we used to share. The house felt bigger. Not in a good way, but like every room echoed a little more. Her things were gone. Most of them anyway. A few odds and ends remained. A cardigan in the closet she must have forgotten. a mug in the dishwasher, her handwriting on a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Don't forget snack day." I left them untouched for a while, not out of sentiment. I think I just didn't have the energy to erase it all at once. But the kids, they adapted. Faster than I did, honestly. They were quiet at first, asking questions in whispers. "When's Mommy coming back? Can I still call her?" I never badmouthed her. I kept it simple, honest but not bitter. "Mom needs time right now," I'd say. "We're going to stick to the plan the judge gave us." And they nodded because they were old enough to understand that something was broken, but not old enough to understand how deep the cracks ran. I got them into therapy a few weeks later. I went too sometimes. Not for them. For me. I didn't realize how much I'd shoved down just to survive the past year. You think you're handling things, working, cooking, getting through the day, and then suddenly you're sitting across from a stranger in a softly lit room talking about how betrayal doesn't always show up with a bang. Sometimes it's just a slow unraveling. A death by 1,000 dismissals. One night, a month or so after everything came down, I found my daughter in the living room, curled up on the couch with one of Emily's old sweaters. She was watching a cartoon she used to love when she was younger, and I sat down beside her, not saying anything for a minute. She looked up at me. "Are we going to be okay?" I didn't lie. "Yeah," I said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's going to take time, but yeah, we're going to be okay." It wasn't a magical fix. Nothing about this was. But little by little, we started building something new. I made dinner every night. I learned how to braid my daughter's hair, badly at first, then better. My son got into basketball, and I coached his team even though I hadn't touched a ball since high school. We made it work. One morning, I realized I hadn't thought about Emily at all the day before. That hit me harder than I expected. Not out of sadness, just surprise. Because for so long, every part of my life was tangled up in her. Every plan, every decision, even my daydreams had her shadow in them. But now, she was just a name that came up in therapy or a topic to navigate around during school events. And then one day, out of nowhere, she emailed me. Just a subject line, "Please read." I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. She wrote about how she was in counseling now, alone, that she'd stopped seeing the guy months ago, that it hadn't been what she thought it was. She said she was trying to find herself again, that she finally understood what she'd done to all of us. Said she missed the kids, and she hoped that someday things could be different. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was more like a diary entry she wanted me to read. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I didn't feel rage or heartbreak or any of the things I might have expected. I just felt done. Truly done. There's something freeing about that. Letting go not because you want to, but because there's nothing left to hold on to. I moved the final few boxes of her things into the garage a few days later. Taped them shut. Labeled them. Told her to schedule a pickup. She did. Quietly. No confrontation. Just a man with a truck who rang the bell and hauled the remnants of a life we no longer shared. And after that, it was like the house exhaled. We rearranged furniture, painted the living room, took down the wedding photos and put up the kids' artwork instead. I didn't erase our history, but I stopped keeping it on display. The divorce was finalized about 5 months after the hearing. Clean, no contest. She didn't fight it. Maybe because she couldn't. Maybe because she finally understood what her choices had cost. I didn't attend the final court appearance. My lawyer handled it. I was at home making waffles for breakfast when he called and said, "It's official." I thanked him, hung up, and flipped the next batch. And that was that. I wasn't married anymore, but I wasn't broken either. I started dating again, slowly. Nothing serious. Mostly coffee dates and awkward conversations about favorite movies and music tastes. It was weird, jarring, but it reminded me that I still had something to offer, that I wasn't just the guy who got cheated on. I was still me. The kids noticed too. One night, my son asked, "Are you happy, Dad?" I looked at him, this kid who'd seen more than he should have had to, and I told him the truth. "I'm getting there," and I meant it. I won't pretend there weren't hard days after that. Anniversaries, holidays, Birthdays where the old routine used to be automatic and now felt foreign. But over time, the weight of those days softened. The memories stopped hurting the same way. They just became memories. Nothing more. Sometimes I still think about the version of me that walked into that wine bar, full of suspicion but still hoping he was wrong. I don't recognize that guy anymore. He was tired, worn down, holding on to something already gone. Now, I've let go. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but because healing only happens when you stop trying to fix what someone else shattered. And finally, after all of it, I'm not surviving anymore. I'm living.